Our next presentation is from my friend Michael Krulik with Avid. He's going to tell us a little bit about the history and everything that's new with Media Composer. It's still the platform that most major motion pictures are cut on, and a lot of TV and a lot of other things. And
there we go.
Yeah, take it away, Michael.
Right. Thank you all. Now, I'm not going to go into the history of Avid and Media Composer. Avid and Media Composer have been out there for over 30 years, so a lot has evolved. Just out of curiosity, is anybody using any of the latest version of Avid Media Composer right now? Anyone using the older version of Avid Media Composer? Well, I know that I believe West Side Story was cut on version 5, so there's all sorts of versions out there. But just so you know, moving forward, any of the new features that you're going to be seeing are going to be in the latest version. So you want to get on the latest one. There are a lot more TV shows and films that are moving to it. Eddie Hamilton is cutting the new Mission Impossible on it. John Wick 4 was cut with the latest version. So people are moving to it. And you can work with it with floating bins or docking bins or things like that. I do want to thank the team from the Orville who give us some lovely footage here to actually, start working with. So it is amazing to me that, even for television shows now, the amount of VFX and audio work that's done is just amazing and more of a compressed amount of time for a television show than for a feature film. But I am working off of a laptop. You can, actually, wouldn't it be great to be editing on a display like this when you're in your edit bay? But I am on a laptop. You could go across, multiple displays if you want, so you do have the standard setup. But for the demo, I am just working off of my laptop. So you can see that you can dock and lock with the new versions of Media Composer. You can float your bins. So if you do have a bin you want to have floating, you can have them float if you want. So you can decide the way that you want to work. But I do want to point out that in some of the latest versions of Media Composer, we also know that there are people coming from Premiere or coming from Resolve for other NLEs. And they may be more familiar with things like the keyboard setup that they have. So I do want to point out that in settings, when you go to create your settings and go to the keyboard, you'll see that we do have default keyboard settings for Premiere Pro and Resolve. So we want the people, when they are coming from the other NLEs, to have something that they're familiar with. And you'll see if I double click and bring up the Premiere Pro keyboard, this is the default layout. So again, if you're familiar, I've had many people who know Premiere say, you got it. I mean, this is the keyboard. This is what I'm familiar with. And you can now, again, have a little more familiarity when moving into Media Composer because it's more of a look. What is the look that you're looking at in Media Composer? If I go and bring up the Resolve keyboard for those who use Resolve, this is the Resolve keyboard layout. So you can set that in your user settings. But I do want to bring up something that we just introduced. We just had a release, I think just a few days ago, of Media Composer. And if I go in to create a new user profile, we actually have a new setting here. Do you want to use the Media Composer default settings, or are you transitioning from Premiere? Nice. So what this does is if I go in and say this is my Premiere Pro layout here, and I go and save it, when it launches into Premiere, it actually changes the workspace automatically to look a little bit like Premiere. So you're not having to hunt. You have all of your media management down in the lower left, your source and recorder across the top, and you have your timeline. So again, we know people are coming in from other applications. We want to make it easier for that transition to take place. Okay, so that's a really nice new feature in the latest version of Media Composer. Some other things that we have done as well. Let me go back and change my setting back to my other one. That means every time you go in to start up, it will set that up. But if you do go into your user settings, which let you customize everything in Media Composer, you're just going to have a really great experience. Another thing I'd like to point out is when you're looking at the command palette or the keys in Media Composer, these are all the keys that you can customize. You'll see that you have all these buttons. You can map them to the keyboard. You can map your menu options. But you start going into the whole, well, where is that trim function that I want to actually add? Well, we've added a quick find here. So if you start typing in trim, it actually isolates to all of the trim buttons that you have. You select the one you want, and it actually highlights that. So a little easier to find all of your trim buttons. It's the little things. So if you know what I'm talking about when you're going into your command palette, this does make it a lot easier. Other things that we have realized is when you're relinking to media. You know, in applications, media moves around. How do you find that? Or when you're working with it, if it gets lost, how do you bring it back? So I'm going to bring up a new bin here. I'm going to go to my desktop, and you'll see that I do have some media here on an external drive. Have some nice drone kite footage here. Let me grab these clips. I'm going to drag and drop them into a bin. And if you didn't know this, if you drag and drop from the Finder to a bin, if you hold down a modifier, like Alt or Option, it links. So I instantly am linking to those files. And you know in Media Composer that a file is linked because you have the little chain link on that clip. If it was imported, it would be a solid clip. If it was on Nexus or shared storage, you would have a little sort of line linking it like a little network connection. But you'll see I have, some nice files here, some really great drone footage of some nice kite footage. But what if this footage gets moved? So I've gone in, I'm editing. I'm going to go and reveal where that file is. But I'm now going to take all of those MP4 files and I'm going to put them into this folder called Moved Here. So they're now moved from that path. That path has been broken. So if I go back to Media Composer, never seen this before, right? Media offline. Well, I've lost that path. So how do I bring it back? How do I find it? So I can go in and choose my files, right-click, and when I go to relink, we have a new option to link to, or relink to managed media, which is Avid MXF media, or linked media. And this lets me say, all right, these are all of the files that are offline. I'll go ahead and locate the file, which now everything is in Moved Here. Hit Choose, and you'll see all the files are now relinked back to the new location. Again, the simple little things. We know people are working with media. They're either sharing it or things are being moved around. What's the best way to manage the media? And we've added that within Media Composer. A couple other things to talk about here. Again, I could spend a lot of time with the options here. Now, again, this is just a simple scene, he says. But if we take a look at it, I mean, that's just the sound design for this one. It's just several minutes in the beginning of the episode. All of these are all video layers. So the great thing, and I love getting projects from customers, is we actually see how things are being built. So if I open this up, and like this little piece right here, they do a little zoom in. Of course, they're not shooting in space. We all know that. So if I go to V1, and I'm using a little touchpad here, you'll see that the VFX goes into basically a soundstage, and they do all their cuts. So we get to see all of the layers here with every bit of effect, everything that's being dropped in, and again, all the sound design work as well. And you can do a lot within Media Composer because you have audio effects that you can go in and start applying. But you can also see that when you're zoomed into the sequence, you don't have to keep sliding around to try and find where you are. One thing we added, if you right-click and go to Show Sequence Map in the timeline, what a sequence map is an overall view of your sequence. That's actually just the relative exact timeline, but all you're seeing is what's in the little outline area here. And now you can easily navigate around to choose what you want to see visually. And because this is a panel, and we know it's paneled because we have the vertical line here. Let me see if I can bring up, sorry, 1 second. I don't have my little cheat cursor pro on here to let you follow what I'm doing. I could take this and drag it into my UI and dock it as well. So if you want that to be part of your workspace, you now have another little panel. Oh, I love all these oohs and ahs. This is great. You can go in and save that as a workspace now. So if we like this workspace with the sequence map, we simply go to, we have the task-oriented workspaces down the right side here. And these are, again, little windows or workspaces that let you choose, I want to go and see work in a color, I want to go into effects, I want to go into audio. So I can say this is a new workspace. I'm going to call this SEQ map. And you'll see that now comes up as its own workspace on the little taskbar on the right side. Now, this is something where if you're an experienced media composer editor, this also takes up real estate. So I could right-click and hide that and get rid of it. It's just gone visually. I still have, if I point to the upper right-hand corner, my workspace is here. Or I could go into my windows and workspaces here and map these to a key, so you can easily go back and forth into your workspaces. Okay. Also with the sequence map, the first iteration of this was with the bin map. So here we have a bin. Again, I'm working on a laptop, and I have all of these clips, all of these dailies from the Orville. We have VFX in here. I want to go in and right-click and bring up the bin map. And the bin map, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, as it populates, is just another visual representation of your bin, which I could easily go in and navigate around just like the sequence map. So you can go in and actually change the size of that. Let me see if I can grab that. I'm trying to use this with my little touchpad here. You'll see I can easily navigate around by just clicking and moving my little window. And that you can go in and turn on and off as well. So that's called the bin map. Come on. Hide bin map. All right. In your bins as well, and again, your bins, they could be docked, they could be locked, they could be floating. If you want to go in and do any sort of management, if you're an assistant and need to go in and change names of clips or anything, let me go ahead and bring up my kite footage here. So I'm going to go in and change the names. DJI, I don't want those to be that. I want it to be, kite shot or something. But I don't want to have to do it individually on each clip. So I'm going to go into an option we put in called bulk edit. And bulk edit lets me go in and I can say I want to choose just what I selected. I only have one clip selected, so any modification is only going to change to that one clip. Or I could say all master clips in the bin. So even though I haven't gone in and selected all of them, I now can go in and modify all of those. So I'm going to go in and say I want to name specific text. This is going to be kite underscore, and you'll see as I type, the modified value changes over here. I'm going to add another value. Let's make that scene 4 underscore. I want to add maybe a counter because I want a counter to differentiate each of those. And we could even go in and add, I'm going to add another separator. And let's take some metadata. So in my bin, I currently have name, creation date, duration. This could be even any custom column that you've created. I'm going to just choose a duration because each duration is different. You can see that here. Once I say commit, I just changed all the names of those clips in one button. Yay! We're taking any breaks you have, any extra time it takes. We're just making it a little more streamlined. Plus, we can go in and start adding other things. So if I go in and start copying or transcoding, which creates .news, I'm just going to create a bunch of copies. What you'll see is copy, 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 untitled sequence. Anytime you want to go in and modify anything here, not just the name, rather than doing bulk edit, I'm going to do find and replace. And find and replace is modal. It comes up in the bin that's currently active. And I'm going to choose .copy.01. And just like a word processor, the first clip is orange, or the first time it finds it is orange. Any subsequent copy or same one is yellow. So I could go in and say replace, and you'll see it starts eating away at all of that, or I can say replace all, and I just got rid of all of those. And that could be within the name, that can be before the name, anywhere, can be just easily going into modifying any of those values. So that's awesome, pretty cool. All right. You may have heard of phrase find and script sync. These are standout features in Media Composer that nobody else has been able to do. So phrase find is being able to go in, and if you have somebody talking, here we have Daisha Broadway. She just edited I Want to Dance with Somebody. She's won Emmys for Black Lady Sketch Show. So any editors, anybody who you've interviewed, any takes, you know somebody said something, but you don't want to have to go and listen to the 2-hour interview to find out where they said it. So I want to find where she says the word script. So let me go ahead. I need to make sure I've started the phonetic indexing. I had to turn it off because there was a problem with playback. But phonetic indexing, or what you get with phrase find, and this is part of Media Composer Ultimate and Enterprise, where you can buy it as an option with just standard Media Composer, goes in and will phonetically index every piece of media that's brought into Media Composer into your project. So if I want to find where somebody says a word, and I have phrase find active, if I click on that, it's now going to go through and go, where does somebody say that? Find a phonetic match with whatever language, and we do have up to 25 languages we support. It's going to bring up in the window here where it thinks it found a match. And you'll see by the score, the higher the score, the most likely it found that match. So let's say Daisha right there. If I double click, it takes me right to that clip. It actually loads it up in the sequence.
It's script sync.
I mean, how many times have you been like, I know they said it. Do I have to listen to the whole thing again? And people actually use this to Frankenbite dialogue. So you can actually go in and find words. It takes you to that point in Media Composer, and you can now mark that and take it and create dialogue. Or cut out bad dialogue, or whatever you need to. But again, the nice thing is it's looking at all media in the sequence. If I double click, here's Nathan Orloff, who just did John Wick 4.
Usually rely on script sync to assemble.
And you can actually change the timing. So if I go to settings here, you notice that there was 1 second pre-roll. You could actually go 2 seconds right on wherever you want, and it'll actually go right to that point. Now, the other option is script sync, something that they're actually talking about here. And what script sync is actually taking a transcription, taking a script, opening it up inside of Media Composer, and what you get is something like this. Now, the interesting thing is this scene in the Orville, there's no dialogue until the end, but they actually have gone in with the script and marked all action to sync up to the action that's taking place in the script. So it's all grouped. So you'll see that if you go in and I double click, it takes me to each take in there. Or if I go down to where he says Isaac, we'll come right to the take, I double click.
Isaac!
Actually, no, the script coordinator probably has nothing to do with this, although they're surprised to see their script inside of the editing system, inside of the NLE. It's more of a job for the assistant to go in and sync up the visual to actually line it. So what you're seeing is each of these little marks here line up to, if they mark it to the over the shoulder where we hear the hiss of the door opening. What script sync does is it helps make it a little bit easier. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but if you take a script, and unfortunately I don't have a full example of this, we have videos of it you can watch online. If you take a script, a text file, open it up inside of Media Composer, and by the way, we've been able to do this for years with script-based editing. Script sync is new. We'll actually take that same phonetic search that's used with phrase find, and we'll say, all right, if there is a point where he says Isaac, put a tick mark there. and it'll do the same syncing. So the cool thing here is the director or script supervisor or anybody can actually take a look at the script and go, okay, let's work on this scene. And they can see all of the takes for that scene quickly and easily. Again, it's an option with Media Composer. It's included with Ultimate and Enterprise. Oh, I'm sorry, Siri, you keep doing that to me. But it's something that, again, is a standout feature in Media Composer. A couple other things I want to point out, and again, there's lots of stuff with the software. We just introduced the ability with Media Composer, Ultimate, and Enterprise to be able to export a Pro Tools session directly from Media Composer. So what I can do is, let's take a little sequence here. I have a piece of it already broken up a little bit. But if I right-click and go to Export, what you'll see in the options for exporting is Pro Tools Session. So right above AAF, which is the way typically you'll take a session or a sequence and take it into Pro Tools, what a Pro Tools session will do is let you choose several things. You can include all video tracks in the sequence. You can include audio tracks in the sequence. You could choose which audio tracks. Now this is huge. If you have markers in your Media Composer sequence, they could be audio cues, video cues, VFX cues. You can choose the markers and even choose the colors that you want. These markers will be seen in Pro Tools. So if you have markers that maybe you color all the audio cues in magenta, you could say just export the magenta cues or export all of them. You could also go in and choose on your mixdown, do you want to link to media because maybe you're on Nexus, you're already Pro Tools and Media Composer is on Nexus. You want to copy your media, you want to consolidate the media, or do you want to mix it down? Do you want to make MXF or MOV files? You want to use ProRes, DNX HD, DNX HR, use your compression. So all of these options are going to be embedded into the .ptx file that's created from Media Composer. If I go to the audio details, I could link to my audio. I have it on the same system, so it doesn't have to export it. If I do a copy or consolidate, we included to actually exclude any audio media that's already there. So if it sees a difference, it's only going to take the different media when you export it. I'm going to say just link. We could convert, we can embed the field recorder metadata. We can convert non-wave media to broadcast wave files. And if I go in and save it, I already have one created, so because this does take maybe a couple minutes to actually export. See, it goes in, it's going to start doing that mix down, it's going to start doing that generation. But when I go back to my Pro Tools file, which it would generate, my .ptx, what you're going to see is, again, I'm just double-clicking the .ptx file. Here is my video file, the mix down that's created there as well, which will open up inside of Pro Tools. I'm not a Pro Tools expert, but I know how to open up a file and show a couple of things. So Pro Tools is going to open up. And again, we have people, I showed this, we did a tech preview of this at IBC last year, and people were just like, thank you. What's going to happen here when it opens up in Pro Tools, you're going to get that video file, which typically was a second pass that had to be brought in to Pro Tools. You're going to get a video cut track. You're also going to get 3 folder tracks, a rendered, unrendered, and rendered only audio folder track. And there it is. So there's the video. Here is the video track up here. So that's the mix down. Here's the cut track. So even though there's a mix down, you're seeing the cuts where every cut is in the sequence. So it lets you follow through, if need be, between your video cuts. Up top, those are my markers. So the markers come over as well. And what you're seeing here is, here's my rendered. The green means that there was an effect rendered on that audio track. Go ahead and collapse that. Here's my unrendered. It's the exact same audio timeline, but nothing's rendered there. And then we also get a rendered only folder track as well. So that's simply directly exporting that from Media Composer. And we're working on and having a tech preview of NAB of taking the Pro Tools session and opening it back up in Media Composer. So we're going to have a full round trip at that point, opening up to a lot of great new tools with that.
Thank you, Michael.
Great.
Another excellent presentation. It's amazing how far Media Composer has come since the last time we did this in 2019.
Right?
And, you know, Avid doesn't rest on its laurels. It just keeps improving. It gets better and better. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.